We are going to read Exploring Mars together and answer the questions that follow, since we couldn't do it in a meeting this week since we had benchmark testing. Have you ever thought about exploring Mars? Even if you haven't, other people certainly have. Mars was first explored by telescope in the 1700s. Early astronomers observed ice caps, dust clouds, and dark streaks. They wondered if there could be life on Mars. In modern times, the United States, the former Soviet Union, and other countries have sent spacecraft to gather more information about the Red Planet. The first missions to Mars flew near the planet. In November 1964, the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, launched Mariner 4. This spacecraft flew past Mars in July 1965 and took the first close-up photographs. The pictures were blurry, but they helped scientists learn what Mars looked like. The new technology allowed the United States to get even closer. In 1975, NASA launched Viking 1 and Viking 2. Viking 1 landed on the surface of Mars on July 19, 1976. Viking 2 followed on September 3, 1976. Both Viking 1 and Viking 2 explored different parts of the planet. Each took pictures and conducted experiments. NASA also built space rovers that could roam the surface of the planet. A rover is a solar-powered vehicle that is operated from Earth by a computer. Several NASA spacecraft have carried rovers to Mars. For example, Mars Pathfinder landed the first Mars rover, Sojourner, in 1997. Sojourner sent more than 500 photographs back to Earth and collected soil samples. 2 more rovers were launched in 2003. After landing in 2004, the twin rovers Spirit and Opportunity discovered evidence of past water on Mars. NASA lost contact with Spirit in 2010, but as of April 2015, Opportunity was still collecting data. Finally, on November 26, 2011, NASA launched a large 6-wheeled rover named Curiosity. Since landing in 2012, this Mars rover has studied whether the planet has been able to support life. Curiosity is gathering evidence from rocks and soil. Over the past 50 years, scientists have learned a great deal about Mars. For example, they have a better understanding of its climate, its features, and its atmosphere. With future missions, they hope to learn even more about the Red Planet. Living on Mars. Do you think it's possible to live on Mars? Humans need certain things to live, such as air and water. Mars has frozen water underground at its polar caps, and it has an atmosphere. Of all the planets in our solar system, Mars has the best conditions to support human life. Yet, if you wanted to settle on Mars, you would have to overcome challenges. One difficulty is the polar atmosphere on Mars. It is much thinner than Earth's atmosphere, and it is mostly made of carbon dioxide. As a result, there is not enough oxygen in the air for humans to breathe. To solve this problem, you could take air with you from Earth or make your own air on Mars. Another problem is that Mars is very cold, windy, and dusty. The average temperature is about -81 degrees Fahrenheit. In order to live on Mars, you would need to wear a spacesuit to keep you warm. The spacesuit would have to be light and flexible enough so you could move about freely. The lack of liquid water on the surface of Mars is also an issue. You would have to take ice from deep below the surface and melt it. Melted ice could be used for drinking. Some scientists have suggested using large mirrors to reflect the sun and melt the polar caps on Mars. Having enough food to eat is another challenge that you would face on Mars. At the present time, there are no data showing that Mars has animals or plant on its surface. Therefore, you would have to bring your own food to a settlement, and you would have to learn how to grow food in greenhouses. If you lived in a Mars colony, you would also have to deal with problems of distance. It takes more than 6 months to reach Mars. That's a long trip if you need to return to Earth for supplies. Despite all these problems, some humans are eager to build permanent colonies on Mars. They believe creating a settlement is an important opportunity. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll be making this trip. So now we're going to answer the questions that follow. Both were about Mars, but both were very different text structures. Which statement describes a major difference between exploring Mars and living on Mars? So as we read Living on Mars, the second one, I noticed there was a lot of words problem and how they solved that problem. So this is obviously a problem and solution text. As we read Exploring Mars, there were a lot of dates. 1964, 1965, 75, 76, 1997, 2003, 2004, 2010, 2015, 2000. So there's a lot of dates, so that tells me that's probably chronological order. So the major difference between exploring Mars and living on Mars is exploring Mars tells about events in history of the exploration of Mars, while living on Mars presents problems and possible solutions to living on Mars. So exploring Mars was chronological order and living on Mars was problem and solution. Choose one sentence from each article that supports the answer in part A. So we need a sentence from exploring Mars that supports it was chronological order and a sentence from living on Mars that supports it was problem and solution. So from exploring Mars, we should have B. In November 1964, the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, launched Mariner 4. That shows us a date that something happened. That shows us a sequence of events or chronological order. From living on Mars, another problem. That shows us problem and solution because it uses that keyword problem. Another problem is that Mars is very cold, windy, and dusty. On page 216, which statement best describes the difference between the purposes of the articles exploring Mars and living on Mars? So exploring Mars wants to tell us events that happened while Mars was explored, and then living on Mars wants to tell us how we could possibly do it if we solve the problems that arose. So you should have picked answer choice B. Exploring Mars describes the purposes of each mission to Mars, while living on Mars describes ways to overcome challenges to living there. Remember, challenges is a synonym for problems. Choose one sentence from each article that supports the answer in part A. So the sentence from exploring Mars that it supports describing the purposes of each mission would be letter C. Over the past 50 years, scientists have learned a great deal about Mars. Now, some of you might have chosen B because it does have a date in B, which tells us it's chronological order, but C also does because it says over the past 50 years. And it also says this one not only tells us chronological order, but it says what they have done with it. So it's describing the purpose of their missions was to learn about Mars. And then we need a sentence from living on Mars, and that would have been answer choice F. Despite all these problems, some humans are eager to build permanent colonies on Mars. That uses our keyword problems, and it lets us know that we're describing ways to overcome living there. The sentence from paragraph 3, the spacesuit would have to be light and flexible enough so you could move about freely. What does the affix "able" in the word flexible mean? So this is the suffix "able." It's added to the end of the word and it changes the meaning. So able means able to be. So it's able to be flexed. Flexible is able to be flexed. Moving on to the open-ended question. Identify the text structure of exploring and living on Mars. Explain why each author chose the text structure for his writing. Use details from this text in your response. So you have to do 3 things. Explain the text structure. We've already talked about it. You just got to explain it in words. Why did the author choose those text structures? That's the second thing you have to do. And then the third thing you have to do is use details or evidence to support your answer. So we'll look at the sample answer. Yours doesn't have to be exactly like this. It can be similar. Exploring Mars, the author uses chronological text structure, we already said that, to describe the history of the exploration of Mars. So it's describing the steps that Mars was explored, when it was explored first, when it's second, third, fourth, the history that they explored it. The structure lets the author describe what exploration has accomplished and how it has changed over time. Obviously, as technology changes, so does the resources that scientists have to send to Mars to explore it. In Living on Mars, the author uses a problem-solution text structure to identify the problem people must overcome to live on Mars. The text structure lets the author present challenges to living on Mars and ways of meeting those challenges. Again, yours doesn't have to be the exact same, but it should be something similar. Finally, the learning target asks you to explain how these skills can help you understand the purposes of other informational text. So, comparing and contrasting the text structure of two or more passages can help you understand the purposes of each passage. It also gives you strategies for structuring your own writing. So not only does it help you to understand why somebody wrote something, but it also helps you in your own writing. If you want to tell the history of something, you would use chronological order. If you want to tell how to overcome a problem, you would use problem and solution. If you have questions, please send me an email.